from dangerous forms of work that could potentially affect their health, safety or morals. And also this would be a step towards contributing towards the growth of our country. This outlines the areas where child labor is prevalent today. The areas marked dark blue. In the areas marked dark blue, the percentage of child labor is 1 to 2% of total proportion of children. So the objectives of my project are to reduce child labor, improve the literacy rate, and also to provide employment opportunities. This is a synopsis of my idea. The basis of my idea is the vast intellectual resource available in our country in universities and colleges. I feel schools can be set up within universities and colleges, and the classes for the children attending these schools will be taken by the professors of these universities and colleges. And apart from this, the families of the children attending these schools will also be provided a fixed amount every month, and the classes will be taken free of charge by these professors. Now the source for Sukhi Samaj will be generated through two routes. One is through the membership collected by Sukhi Samaj for its members. The members of Sukhi Samaj can avail various services. These services will be provided by the parents of children attending schools under the Sukhi Samaj system. And the other way to generate funds is by collecting a nominal fee from the students of these universities and colleges and using the same for generating a monthly income for these families. Stage 1 for implementation will involve identifying universities and colleges where we can set up these schools. Now these depend on the following factors. That is the campus space available for setting up these schools, the number of professors willing to teach under this initiative, because you need a different set of skills to teach children and a different set of skills to handle college students, and the accessibility to the children. Phase 2 involves completing legal formalities to obtain permission for setting up the school. This is probably the longest phase. Phase 3 involves division of classes among the professors according to their ability and convenience. Phase 4 involves scheduling classes. Phase 5 involves allocating classrooms. And Phase 6 involves obtaining funds for the Sukhi Samaj system. Stage 2 is very crucial for the implementation of Sukhi Samaj. It involves tracking children who can be benefited from the Sukhi Samaj system. Now this stage does not have a specific timeline. Volunteers will have to continuously scan the area and locate children who are engaged in child labor and are not attending schools. After this, the families of these children have to be contacted, and they have to be briefed about why their children need education for a bright future ahead. Stage 3 is mapping the children to the respective schools according to the location where they reside. Stage 4 is creating the Sukhi Samaj website and database. The Sukhi Samaj database will maintain a list of services available and also the list of services rendered by any person over a period of time. For availing services, the Sukhi Samaj members have to log on to the website and register what service they want and when, or they can directly contact the volunteers. They can call them up. The volunteers will then provide the adequate or the appropriate person for the job. Stage 5 is spreading awareness about Sukhi Samaj through campaigns and awareness walks, pamphlets, posters, Facebook, Twitter, and articles in the newspaper. Apart from this, awareness can also be created by the university in which the schools have been set up. That is, the university in their prospectus can give a detailed view about the Sukhi Samaj system so that the future students and their parents come to know about such a system. This is the organizational structure of Sukhi Samaj. It involves volunteers and employees working at different levels and departments. Here, the employees are the parents of children who are undergoing classes at the Sukhi Samaj system. Level 1 is the Sukhi Samaj office at any state. Level 2 consists of individual centers in the university, and each center has a head. The head will track the volunteers of the center and report back to the Sukhi Samaj office. Level 3 comprises the volunteers. They will be working in 3 centers, 3 departments: the service department, the funds department, and materials department. The service department volunteers will be in charge of mapping the employees to the respective houses. The number of employees under each volunteer could vary. The volunteers under the fund department will be in charge of distributing the fixed monthly income to the families of children, and the volunteers in the materials department will be in charge of procuring the study materials for children and distributing them. The general volunteers are very important. They will be in charge of getting feedback from members, rescheduling classes for professors in case they are not available, and last but not least, identifying children in the locality who are not attending schools and engaged in child labor so that they can be brought into the Sukhi Samaj circle. This table depicts the time, volunteers and resources required. Now stage 1, phase 2 takes the longest, around 1 to 2 years. That is obtaining paperwork and legal formalities for the school. But the thing is, the other phases of stage 1 and also the other stages can take place simultaneously with stage 1 phase 2. So the entire project can be set up in 1 to 1.5 years. The first step for pilot project implementation is the formation of educational trust and registration. Schools have to be set up strictly as a non-profit business under the Societies Act of 1860. Next, we have to obtain something called an essentiality certificate. That is, once the governing entity has been set up, it will have to start looking for land. The essentiality certificate certifies the requirement of school in a particular area. The logic behind the practice is to make sure that no two schools compete with each other and one of them becomes redundant. Even if a member in the governing entity has land which he or she wants to use for setting up the school, they will have to obtain a no objection certificate from the Department of Education certifying the requirement of school in that area, and after that a sanitation and structural report has also to be submitted. The infrastructure for school will involve the office, playground, labs and library, and the school authorities also need to apply for recognition. Up to class 5, recognition can be obtained from the municipality. For classes 6 to 8, recognition has to be obtained from the Department of Education. For anything above that, recognition again has to be obtained from the Department of Education, but after a gap of 2 years. This is just a rough approximation of flow of funds. Let us consider a university with about 2,500 students. Suppose we are collecting a nominal fee of 100 from each student. For the entire year, we will be collecting about 2,50,000. Next, the membership fee collected from each member is 500. Assuming we have 30 members every month, for the entire year, we will be collecting 1,80,000. So we will have 4,30,000 at our disposal for the entire year, which comes to 35,000 for a month. Suppose we have 10 students in a center, the amount has to be distributed to 10 families. So it comes to around 3,500 for each family.
Quickly, what is the difference between a member and a student?
Member is can be any person who pays the membership fee to the Sukhi Samaj system, and he can avail services. The services
is a beneficiary family, is it?
No. They use the facilities of, they use the services of the children's parents.
Yeah. Like suppose a member wants an electrician or a cook, the service will be provided by the parents of children attending the school.
It's like a barter system at some levels. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Even though this amount is not enough to cover all their expenses, it will partially cover their financial requirement.
3,583.
3,500 per family. Per month.
It's a lot.
Now let's go into the problems associated with implementation. The main thing is we have to set up the schools as fast as possible, but there are a lot of procedures to be completed for this. Firstly, a board of directors has to be formed with financial, legal and other experience. Incorporation papers have to be filed with the Secretary of State. Incorporation paper is nothing but documents which represent the school, define its objective and certify its existence. Next, the charitable organization has to apply for tax exempt status from the Indian Revenue Service. Next, we have to choose key faculty from universities who will be willing to do this. I conducted a survey in my college and I found that 4 out of 5 professors were willing to teach for such a system. Next, for teaching in a school, you require a BA degree, but I propose a system similar to the Teach for India program, where fellows are provided training to be successful teachers in classrooms, and we have to provide employment to people from different sectors. Suppose the parents of children are farmers or construction workers or fishermen, they will not be able to provide services for the members. In this case, the children will be allowed to attend school, but the fixed monthly income provided to other families may not be available. These are the factors which mainly influence the project, but I feel if these are given ample consideration and tackled with care, it will be very effective in improving literacy and giving a secure and wholesome life for many families. Thank you.